Hello everybody, my name is Thomas Bause Mason and I'm SMPTE's Director of Standards Development, and I'm here today with James.
Hello.
And James, you heard about SMPTE and you're a SMPTE member.
Yes.
And you heard about our new plans to become more software centric, to get more into software development, support software development and standards, and I know you're a programmer, so I'm curious to know why did you decide to join SMPTE as a programmer?
I joined SMPTE because I was doing a lot of work in digital media. And as a programmer, understanding how to deal with digital media, SMPTE was really forging the way forward with a lot of that stuff I saw happening, etc. And one of the big things that made me really interested in SMPTE was developments. I saw it coming with IMF and also DCP. And because I came for the cinema and digital media part of the industry, I could see the changes that were going to come down the road in terms of the innovation that those technologies would bring. And so I thought becoming a member of SMPTE would be a good idea, and also because as a programmer and as a company that's trying to innovate, getting involved, I actually have been taken part in some of the standards community work, etc., when it was suitable, to stand up and potentially influence those meetings and what was going to happen with the standards that SMPTE eventually developed.
Yeah.
And that I thought was of major importance. So for me, as if I was having a company and I was coming up with some innovative ideas, I needed to make sure that I could build on like stable foundations and standards to make those innovative ideas take flight.
Yeah.
Probably a bigger example of that would be how IMF has really just exploded in the last year or so. The user group meetings, etc. They get completely full. The discussion, the number of companies which are now involved in IMF has grown exponentially over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I can really see, if you look at a lot of the like at NAB this year, I've really noticed how the cloud is starting to take flight. I've always been a cloud skeptic.
Yeah.
But IMF and how it's changing the way we deliver, and streaming technologies and how the Netflix and similar of the world are starting to change the way we do distribution and how we put media out into the world. That's really on the back of IMF, and IMF was in SMPTE. And if I wanted to be on top of those standards and take advantage of potentially developing or making products that are going to affect that and all those opportunities that come with it, you should be in SMPTE too.
Yeah.
And so one of the things, I know we're talking about this today, is because I'll be honest, SMPTE has traditionally been full of really traditional engineers who are making things like standards on how electrical signals go down an SDI cable and things like that, sprockets and film. Lots to do about the physical and very ground level engineering side.
Yeah.
But we've virtualized everything now. Right?
It's a big move into the data center.
That's right.
And all this. If you look at IMF, you could make the argument that it supports automation, and with that, it simplifies the move into a data center,
That's
into file-based workflows, automated file-based workflow, and distribution.
That's right.
So yeah, SMPTE really tries to be a place where you can create these standards, where you can be interoperable. We do IMF interop testing. We have a lot of the big companies involved. We have the big studios in there. We have Netflix. We have Amazon and Microsoft, Apple, who come to the IMF user groups. So really IMF, especially IMF, it has really taken off, as you said.
Other areas I still think there's lots to take off with IAB, which is the new immersive audio bit stream, which is sort of only getting its legs now.
Yeah.
There's potential for a lot of room there for software developers coming up with different ways of moving immersive audio into games or into VR, and I think the IAB bitstream would be a good foundation for growing that, or for going forward as an industry into that sort of area. So I see a lot of potential there. It's just that there's a lot of innovation to come.
Yeah, I mean, I should mention actually we have an effort on media microservices, which is just developing, but it's really interesting for SMPTE standards participants to look at ways how we can categorize media microservices, how we can categorize them, and then also see we have opportunities to standardize on interfaces, APIs between media microservices, and become sort of a registry for APIs.
So this is
API specifications for media microservices.
Yeah, so what we're talking about here is potentially if we implement lots of virtualized media services or endpoints or just anything that does something to data, finding out where that endpoint or that access to that API is. This is more like a way to find those things, or?
Yes. So if you look at a media workflow, you have different steps in there, like frame rate conversion, transcoding, color transform, all that kind of activities. In the past were baked into monolithic software.
Yes.
And now we have a microservices approach where you take these different functions of one monolithic software and break it up into discrete functions, specific pieces of software which become easily scalable in cloud environments, right? Instead of spinning up 100 versions of one monolithic software just to do transcoding, you can just spin up 100 transcoding microservices instead of...
because it's a microservice, you can call on it as you need it.
Yeah, and scale it as you need it.
Yeah, because microservices should scale automatically, specifically, so if they're developed correctly. So it's a good way to mitigate your infrastructure costs in a developed way.
And the particular interest for SMPTE is to look at how can these media microservices, we don't want to define the actual microservice itself, but we look at opportunities if we can standardize how these media microservices communicate with each other.
Yes, that's right. Yes. So we'll get back to the topic here. Is really like everything we're talking about here is software and computers, right? And so,
especially if you look at our core standard now, ST2110.
Yes.
Media over IP. It's kind of seen as a pre-step to the move into the data center.
It's basically it's a form of virtualizing everything we did on cables into putting all that onto something that can fit on an IP network.
Yes, you can basically, once you have an IP infrastructure, you can move to commodity hardware, which kind of implies that you're running software-only applications, maybe with the support of an FPGA.
Yes.
And once you have software-only applications, you can put them in a container or a virtual machine. You can virtualize them, and once you have them virtualized, you can think about how I move them into server farms, and if you work with a third-party provider, you can move into the cloud.
Yes, and I can say for sure, like I can see my brain explodes with the type of innovations that I could do, and it's more about picking what I want to put some time into with the sort of new features and services that you can supply once you do turn all this stuff into data.
Yeah, and as SMPTE, we really want to be not prescriptive to how people engage with us in terms of software development. We really strive to support the tools software developer are used to.
Yeah.
We are very much engaged in GitHub, and for our software development, we do quite a bit of reference software for our standards. So we do this now in GitHub. And if there are collaboration tools like Slack or Trello, people are now using, we engage in that too.
Yes, and I can really see a cultural change going on with SMPTE. we're trying, like the younger generation use all these tools in a particular way, and SMPTE is very much trying to do that as well right now. And also other aspects I wanted to mention here, which made me quite excited this year, is that, for example, the Academy has launched the move into, coming together like a Linux Foundation, and how it brings together lots of very important software and standards, and being a force behind them to support them, etc. The Academy, they do a lot of work in the science of motion picture. They are taking on the effort to do the same thing, but specifically for technologies which are used for producing motion picture films and theatrical films and other bits and pieces. I think that's probably one of the best developments I've heard in recent years.
Yeah. And we are engaged with the Academy. We talk to them. We're trying at the moment to understand what this is all about,
Yes.
And then see if there are opportunities for SMPTE to engage with the Academy and be part of that.
Anyway, that's fantastic. I think we'll finish up now.
Yeah.
Thanks, Thomas, for going over with me the transition for SMPTE to programmers and programming and software. I think it's an exciting time, especially if you are a young programmer and want to make a difference in this world. This is an area I think you could do something in if you stick your head in and have a good look. Thanks very much for watching. This will be part of the CineTechGeek video podcast, and I thank Thomas from SMPTE. And I always come and interview SMPTE myself. I thought they'd get them to interview me because I'm more of the subject than the other one this time, because I am in SMPTE and a programmer, which is rare, but not becoming as rare because of the realisation of the benefits of being so. So thanks, Thomas.
You're most welcome.
Thanks, mate. And James Gardner, CineTechGeek. Bye for now.
See you later.